The name Robert Mondavi is synonymous with Napa Valley wine, but what if I told you that Mondavi wines you see at every supermarket across the country don't actually have any Mondavis involved in the making of their wine? Today we go straight to the source and chat with Robert Mondavi's grandson, Brian Mondavi Borger of Continuum Estate.
Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast dedicated to helping you discover great wines with great value for every occasion. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Aaron here, and as always, I'm joined by Colin and Joel, and we have a good one for you today.
Super exciting. Super exciting.
Very exciting. Because it's not just me, Colin and Joel. As Joel mentioned at the top of the show, we are joined by Brian Mondavi Borger. That was messed up, man. And you know, a long time friend of mine, but brand new to this show and really new to Colin and Joel. I think I've talked to you about him before, and I've just referred to Brian as a buddy of mine. You met him at my wedding.
Yeah,
and we did not know that we would be sitting here years down the line talking about wine.
Yeah.
No, that's true. Yeah. No. A brief meeting, I believe. You know, we were just all kind of like partying. But yeah, other than that, This is pretty wild.
That never happens.
Yeah, that's right. But, pretty wild to be here now talking about wine. Really cool stuff. It's such a cool community and world that there's so many connections like that. Excited to have Brian on.
Yeah, and you know we're gonna talk about it. I don't want to give away the fun story ahead of time. We're going to talk about it a little later, but as I kind of mentioned, I've known Brian for many, many years, but for many of those years, Brian was just a buddy of mine that I met through a friend. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my friend Brian here. So Brian Mondavi Borger represents the fourth generation of the iconic Mondavi winemaking family. As son of Continuum Estate co-founder Marcy Mondavi Borger and nephew of Tim Mondavi, Brian was raised with a deep appreciation for Northern California's viticultural heritage. After studying economics at Pomona College and gaining hands-on harvest experience at the family's Pritchard Hill estate in Napa Valley, he went on to build a background in marketing. Today, Brian works alongside his family to help uphold the estate's single-minded focus on producing world-class Napa Valley red wines while managing key sales and outreach operations. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you for being here. We're so excited to have you.
Formal intro.
Yeah,
It was
lengthy.
I know, but it's
almost like
important.
I've done something with my life. We all know that's not true.
Please. No, we are super excited to have you, and it is exciting on so many levels. One, just because you are a very cool person who I love talking to, and two, because you have this incredible story and this incredible connection to one of the most recognizable wine names.
Iconic wine.
Yeah,
names. Not even just recognizable.
World.
Iconic.
My God, sir.
I had a pretty cool grandfather and the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, so we're gonna dive in and we're gonna ask some questions, and then we're gonna get into the wine that you shared with us, because I don't even want to bury the lead on that one yet. But man, it's just so cool that we get to drink this with you. So first of all, I just want to go back and say, hey, so you did not grow up in Napa Valley. You grew up in New York, and you were far removed from the day-to-day operations of what was going on in Napa Valley. So what was your relationship like with your grandfather and with Robert Mondavi's legacy as a whole?
I grew up in Manhattan, which is a little bit of a different arc, I think, than the rest of my family. But wine and Robert Mondavi Winery was always very much a part of our life as a family. My mom, Marcy, was Robert's middle child, and the reason why I'm in New York or was in New York was in the 70s. My mom was, she had worked a few jobs around the country and got homesick and wanted to move back to Napa Valley and work at the family business. So she called my grandfather up and told him that she wanted to come home and find a role for her at the winery. And he basically said, we're full up here. You don't have a whole lot of industry experience. We really need someone with sales experience. And if I'm honest, we really need a family member. We really need a salesperson in New York. New York was, I think it still really is known for being a Burgundy-centric town. And our whole mission as a family, Robert's whole kind of founding mission with Robert Mondavi Winery was to bring California wine to the forefront of the industry and to prove to the world that we in the U.S. and California and in Napa could make wine that could go head to head with the best in the world. So my mom got shipped out to New York, and what she was, I'm sure, hoping would be just like a couple year hiatus, dragging cases of wine around the streets of New York, calling on steakhouses and restaurants all around the city, trying to convince people that, we hillbillies from this dusty farm town in Napa could make good wine. And lucky for me, but maybe unlucky for my mom's plans to return home, she met my dad, who is an East Coast boy, and got stuck east. So my sister and I are kind of the East Coast branch of the Mondavi family. But yeah, growing up, wine was always at the dinner table. We would always, fly over to Napa for vacations a few times a year and visit the family. It was like total Disney World to me as a small kid, like walking around this awesome winery with this arch and tower that was so iconic, and these crazy tanks. All my cousins were working in the cellars. If there was a spring break, summer break, all of them were dragging hoses in the cellar or working in the vineyard. Wow. So, I'm the youngest of the family, and I would go visit them and kind of check out what my cool California cousins were doing in this really awesome spot. So cool. Yeah, very much a part of my upbringing, very much a part of my life, but always like a little bit disconnected. Always something that I was looped in on. My grandfather would always come visit and, take us out, and always wanted to instill words of wisdom of, why we were doing what we were doing, why wine was so important to the good life and to bringing people together. And, we had family council meetings where we'd go on trips together and talk about the business. But that was like these small little snippets throughout the year growing up. And my main life was growing up as a normal New York kid.
But I love that when you were around, the estate and around everything, like you were all hands on. You were learning the process, and gosh, your mom schlepping around Manhattan trying to distribute the wine. Like that's incredible. That's boots on the ground stuff.
Yeah.
That's very
and
cool.
That was, I think before I came into the picture, she was like pounding pavement with a case of wine on a trolley. But when I was growing up, her main role was kind of to spread the good word about wine around the world. So she would go and do seminars. She called it Queen for a Day because she had a pretty normal life in the city, and then she'd go out and she'd be Marcy Mondavi, and she'd be doing seminars, component tastings of all the, I think if you're like training for a SOM exam or learning how to be a winemaker, you have these little cups with, this is what cassis smells and tastes like. This is what licorice smells and tastes like. This is what, American oak and French oak shavings smell and taste like. And that's like a very formal behind the curtain kind of thing. And she was really instrumental in this education program where at Robert Mondavi Winery, we were always trying to bring wine to the people and let people know that it's not that scary. It's, it's this beautiful, natural, delicious God's gift to man. And don't let snottiness or mystery get in the way of, of enjoying that delight of life. So she brought these seminars with all those component tastings kind of to the world to pull back the curtain on what the industry was doing and let people know that it could be fun and interesting and not scary and intimidating.
So cool.
The wine nerd in me desperately wishes I could have been at one of those. That's what an amazing sounding experience. That just to hear it like from a Mondavi is just like, that would have been like mind blowing. Somebody who's into wine. So that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and also speaking of beautiful, natural, and delicious, I have to ask, how did you meet Aaron when you were out? Because I know I heard something about a dodgeball story, and I want to. I realize we have you here. I want to learn so much more about the family and the wine, but this whole thing is happening because you guys met. I heard something about maybe a dodgeball team. How'd you guys kind of meet and become friends? And I heard that you really kind of buried the lead on just all of the family and all that good stuff. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I would argue the lead was Peanut Butter Zombie Killers. That was really, I think that
was the name of the dodgeball team.
Yes.
Okay.
When Aaron and I both pass, along with the rest of our team, our tombstones will include the Peanut Butter Zombie Killers and our somewhat mediocre record in intramural dodgeball in New York City.
Yeah.
I love that.
The reason we're here today is because we couldn't make it in professional dodgeball. This is our fallback.
Well, I'm glad
This
then.
was the
Actually,
fallback.
I think
I
that
love
worked
that.
out all right.
Yeah, we missed one of the 4Ds, and
Yes. That last
tough out
dodge is the
there.
hard one to remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
did
so-
I hear too? Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we had mutual friends that had this dodgeball league that were pretty successful. And when I moved back home from college, two buddies of mine were on the dodgeball team and looped me in, and Aaron was part of it, and the rest
Nice.
is history.
But I will say, like, we when you talked about, like, so your mom would say, like, queen for a day when she would go into this world and then come out of this world, like, that was kind of my experience with you for a while. Like, I don't remember over the many years of us hanging out, you just kind of dropping in, like, yeah, out west, I am a member of the premier wine family of the world, of Napa Valley, which was all, and you were like a beer guy, like you drank beer, so like
Still do.
So like that was always, was that was that an active choice to just not come up, or was it just something that you like kind of the same mindset your mom, just like, yeah, I'm just like not gonna make that part of my day right now?
I mean, it wasn't part of my day. I mean, we were pretty young. It wasn't part of my like day-to-day life. It was, part of my upbringing and like background. But, like how often were you like, yeah, I got this weird uncle who like does this thing. Like when we're, at Tin Lizzy at the bar, just like kicking it on a Sunday, you're not like going into your whole family history. So it's, I don't know, I was living my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little bit weird if you're, it's like a total non sequitur kind of.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I don't know, it didn't come up.
I just think I know you will never say this about yourself. I will say, like, I just think it speaks a lot to your character and your humility as a person, because I think there's a lot of people in the world where it would be the first thing that would come up when they
Absolutely.
meet someone new.
Yeah.
People find ways to move like that part. I don't know if I have the self-control, if I had that aspect of my family, to not immediately let someone know. So I just always thought it was a very cool aspect of who you are, that is just like, that can sit in the background and we can just go kick ass and dodgeball and drink some beers, and that's just not
Yes,
going
we
to come
did.
up. Yes, we did.
Well, I mean, it was, I was also pretty determined to like not choose that path. Something, I mean, my grandfather would always say, but my mom would always say that you should always do, first of all, something my grandfather always said is find what you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. And he was always he would always kind of drill into me and my cousins when we were growing up, like the most important thing is to find something you like to do and like go at it full bore. Don't hold back. It doesn't have to be wine. Like if you are interested in wine and you want to work in wine, that's great. But just the number one thing is like find your passion in life. And I was very committed to kind of finding my own way, figuring out what I wanted to do. There weren't like wine classes in high school, or at least in my college. So I kind of found my own way, and like that's why like in the city I was doing my thing. It's unrelated to wine. And
That's
here
awesome.
I am.
Yeah, I feel like that gives you such a unique perspective, though, right? Because you do have all that family background, and the trips out to Napa and stuff like that. But also being somebody who's trying to find their own way, you've seen more than just wine. So coming into the wine industry now, what do you think are kind of the biggest issues or misunderstandings in the wine world? And what do you think like people are missing who might not necessarily be into wine and want to get into wine?
I think it's kind of where they say history might not repeat, but it sure rhymes. It's kind of it's an interesting moment, I think, in American history and in the wine world, that we kind of need a champion, almost, like what my grandfather did back in the 60s and 70s. That, I mean, I kind of described like a lot of the things my mom was doing in the education program for Robert Mondavi Winery is wine has always had this kind of stuffy air about it, that it can be intimidating. There's so much to know. There's certain types of people who will always want to, puff themselves up and, make you believe that they know everything and you know nothing. And the reality of wine is that it's this like really amazing natural thing. It's farmed. It's not made like it comes from the earth, and there's kind of one ingredient. And it's like this really cool, very simple way to experience something like purely natural. And it's something that like was the number one thing that my grandfather was all about. It's like the cornerstone to a good life. A good life includes good friends, hanging out, enjoying, a nice summer night with friends and family, coming around a dinner table, having an awesome meal, having a glass of wine that kind of loosens up the topic of conversation. You get into it, makes people happy, it makes people like question things and share ideas and share thoughts. And it turns what could have been like a ho-hum, like, yeah, we, had some chicken and went to bed, into like a really memorable, fun, like core memory with your friends that solidifies bonds. And, I think that's like what the world needs, like, an exchange of opinions, of ideas, of fostering friendships. Having good food and good wine is the good life. And to me, that's the number one thing that I think gets overlooked, the simplicity and the joy of it in this world of, fancy, shiny bottles on tall shelves where it's a lot. But it shouldn't be. And that's why, like, I love what you guys are doing. Like, this podcast is exactly that. It's just coming together as friends, sharing a good wine, having a good chat, bringing people together, keeping the juices flowing of life. Like, that's it.
So 100%. To summarize, the grandson of Robert Mondavi says that the Stop Wasting Your Wine podcast is what is needed to solve the problem in the current wine community.
Shameless.
Cheers.
Shameless.
I'm just saying what I heard. I'm just saying what I heard. No,
I wish, that is a lot of what we try to call out here, Brian. And I love your point about how, like, it's a one ingredient thing that's supposed to be fun. Like, where'd the focus go from that and just part of society for thousands of years? It's always brought people together. When did we go away from just that core simple thing to, it's, this big snooty thing? And yeah, like you said, these beautiful, bottles and displays, and it's all about the money. We're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah. Does it? So something that, and actually I think this is also what Stop Wasting Your Wine is all about. My grandfather would always say, like, his number one thing, if you're not getting the theme, like, he had his like words of wisdom, and he just hammered them into my cousins and I when we were growing up. But the most important thing with wine is to drink what you like and like what you drink. And that applies to wine. That applies to anything. I mean, I love beer. I love cocktails. I love wine. If it tastes good, I'm into it. And drink what you like and like what you drink.
That's so good.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wiser words have never been spoken.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, 'cause that's what it's all about, right? We're just trying to find the likable thing. And I think also help people, we kind of talked about at the top of the show, like, also steer people away from maybe what they perceive is the best option for them when there are better options out there, and just from like a lack of maybe understanding or knowledge, because wine is so scary and intimidating to some folks. So having said, like, I think about Robert Mondavi wine, and it is one of the most accessible, noticeable, widely available wine bottles that you see at the supermarket. But I did want to take this opportunity to ask, I think the average person, I would say that most people outside of the wine industry would probably have no idea that the bottles of wine that they are seeing that say Robert Mondavi, have your grandfather's face on the bottle, that is not being made by the Mondavi family anymore, and hasn't since 2004. So would you mind just for a moment kind of sharing with us, like, kind of like What happened in 2004, and then how has that kind of steered your family's journey in the direction that you're in now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's increasingly common, unfortunately, in the industry that you get, these ostensibly family wineries that have the name that actually are in no way affiliated with the founding family anymore. And that, sadly is kind of our situation now, that no one in our family and the Mondavi family has anything to do with Robert Mondavi Company. And, all the affiliated, projects that we had, Opus One, totally separate now. So all those partnerships, all the brands, all the vineyards, all sold off in 2004. It was a transition that we were not really as a family looking for. It was a pretty gut-wrenching part of our family history that hit everyone in our family really hard, emotionally and kind of, in the heart. But it was a long process. The arc of our family, the whole reason why Robert founded Robert Mondavi Winery was because he recognized post-Prohibition, the state of American wine was not the greatest. But he recognized that, Napa Valley has all the ingredients necessary to make wine, that could be just as good as the best in the world. And that was the whole idea, is we wanted to make wine at the very highest level using traditional, classic, clean methods, to the point where, something my grandfather loved to do is he would blind taste people. He would get in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, like the first gross of Bordeaux were the best wines of the world. There was nothing else. There was first gross or bust. And so he would do a blind tasting of all the first gross, and he'd sneak in a bottle of Mondavi Reserve, and he'd challenge people to put up or shut up, and just to say, like, if Americans can't make great wine, call it out.
We're going to find out.
Yeah. And that's really what, my uncle Tim Mondavi took over winemaking at Robert Mondavi Winery in 1974. And he kind of helped move us even more, I think, in the fine wine direction of focusing on great land. That's always been my uncle's true drive. It's, finding great land, farming it with integrity, not futzing with things, like letting the land come through and making wine that, we really feel is as good as the best wines in the world. That's always been our thing. But farming, famously, I think, is maybe not the most cash flow happy business. When phylloxera came around in the 80s and early 90s, phylloxera is this little critter that lives in the soil, eats the roots of the vines, and can really wreak havoc. We had to replant a ton of vineyards all at once, and to pay for that, we needed to take the company public. And I think, there's a little honeymoon phase, but I think we learned pretty quickly that a publicly traded farm doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Gotcha.
Sure.
And, what our priorities were as a family, focusing on, we'll go the extra mile, spend the extra dollar to farm organically, to use the best techniques, didn't add up from a business perspective. So we always had disagreements, internally with the board. And finally, I think the board got sick and tired of family shenanigans and focusing on, what they viewed as the wrong priority, and found a buyer in Constellation Brands and said, thank you, goodbye. So we had, this gut-wrenching break where we were quite literally kicked off the family farm and needed to find a new project. We, as a family, hadn't missed a harvest since 1919, since my great-grandfather, Cesare Mondavi, started shipping grapes during Prohibition.
Wow.
So my mom, Marcy, my uncle Tim got together right away, and Continuum, our last vintage at Robert Mondavi was 2004. Our first vintage of Continuum was 2005.
Damn.
So it's quite literally our family's continuation on in the wine business. And it's allowed us to kind of level up our goals and our ambitions to go even further than what we could do at Robert Mondavi, at Opus One, at our ventures all around the world, to really drill into what's truly the best crown jewel bit of land in Napa in California, which we really believe we found up at the top of Pritchard Hill at Continuum Estate, and to put all of our focus and all of our experience just in this one property and this one venture, and kind of we no longer have to answer to any other powers, any other opinions. We can just do what we believe is right, what we know is right for making the best possible wine from America.
Man,
Amazing.
that breaks my heart that happens so often, because it does take the soul out of the wine. And you could go try them. They're kind of, a lot of them are mass produced and they taste that way. It's awesome that you guys were able to immediately recover and move on to something else that you guys are super proud about and love. But that's just a shame that you guys had to go through that. Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Onward and upward, as my uncle likes to say.
Yeah.
There you go.
And honestly, looking back, we wouldn't trade Tokelon. We wouldn't trade, what we had for what we have now. We really believe that
awesome.
Continuum and, Novicium and Centium are the wines that my family now makes. This is our wheelhouse. This is what we're good at. This is what makes our family, collectively happier. And I think we're making better wine now than we ever have.
So, Brian, I'd love to actually hear a little bit more about that because, here we are today, Continuum Estate on Pritchard Hill. Can you tell us a little bit more, what is it about this particular land that, does give you the, what you need, right, to make that wine and to continue to honor the Mondavi legacy while opening you up to, make something new and make it your own?
For us, it's always, it's about the land.
Mm-hmm.
Wine is farming. We call it wine growing for that exact reason. There's really one ingredient. It's what you grow. I'm gesturing like you guys can see the vineyard behind the camera. But anyway, I'm up at the property now.
I can see it in my mind.
Yeah. My uncle, he's been in charge of winemaking for over 50 years. He's worked on projects all around California, all around Napa. He's worked on projects in France, in Italy, in Australia, in Chile. So he's seen and worked with and in some of the best vineyards all around the world. He's found some of the most gifted vineyard sites. And I really don't think that there's anyone in the industry that has my uncle's comprehensive understanding of what makes a great vineyard tick, how to find a great vineyard, how to care for it. And everything is geared towards making wine that tastes as magical as it can possibly taste. So,
awesome.
when we left Robert Mondavi Winery, we were looking for a new home, and it took several years of searching around Napa to find this site that we have now. And really, what we were looking for, I think, to kind of put it in a cute little box, which, we can go on and on about the details, but we were looking for a site that has ideal ripening conditions and, quite frankly, a really rugged, difficult growing condition. Something that, the best wineries, the best vineyards in the world, those the vineyards that people know the names of in France, in Italy, or wherever, they're not the plush, fertile valley floor where the vines are happy and bushy and produce a ton of fruit. They're those rugged hillside vineyards where there's shire soils, rockier. There's just less there for the vine to grow in and take up, and that's where that struggle of the vine. Vines and people are very similar. You come out, I think, of struggle of a difficult life with more wisdom and more understanding of how to do things the right way. And that's just what vines do up here is, on Pritchard Hill, it's Napa's mostly marine derived soils, but we're on the eastern Vaca mountain range, the eastern mountains that make up the, one side of Napa, and it's all volcanic. So we have these huge red andesite boulders, super high in volcanic minerals and iron that really makes it difficult for the vines to survive. We only have 3 to 6 feet of topsoil, and then it's just volcanic bedrock. So the vines really live kind of treacherous, awful life. But they come out, so much more resilient, and they have more wisdom. They tell a much richer, more interesting story in their fruit, and they're more resilient. They're used to the struggle. So when nature throws us curveballs, these vines are like, yeah, I got this.
Right. So funny you brought that up, though, because honestly, I've been to a few wine tastings now, and it's so funny because when you find that winemaker that has the terroir like that, they're so proud of it. Like the number of people like pull up their iPad and they're like, look at the land. Look how much this sucks.
Look at these rocks and how fucking terrible they are to move.
These vines are struggling.
Yeah.
And it's like, because they're simultaneously selling it as like, this is so good, and like, God, this is so hard to do.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's such a cool, a while ago we had a German wine on. They were talking about how like people were pretty much rappelling up and down.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The side of a mountain to get to the vines. And it's just like, again, it's such a cool concept, and what a good like, comparison of just like the beautiful rolling hills of like a vineyard that you have on a postcard versus like
too
the
easy
struggle.
Yeah. No, that's it's such a real thing. I mean, you taste it in the wine. Is there's so much more depth and complexity and character, and again, I keep going back. Like, wine is a natural product. It's the closest thing to go into a farmer's market and getting that like most unbelievable like summer peach you've ever had. That's the business we're in. Is we're not streamlined for efficiency. We're not like looking for like how broad can our supply chain go? Like, can we get, a strawberry to, Wisconsin in January? We're looking for the most amazing bite of summer fruit that you've ever had in your whole life that, 10 years later, you're like, God, that peach from that place, that 1 year, I'm still thinking about it. I can't get it out of my head. That's the business we're in. And that's the really cool thing about wine is like, fruit, nature, it's so fleeting. Like harvest season is so quick and it's done. And wine, you can literally bottle and preserve that magic from that 1 year, from that one like perfect peach tree in your neighbor's yard or whatever, and go back and check in on it in 3 years and 10 years and 40 years. But that's the business we're in. We're trying to find that magical piece of land with that beautiful old vine that produces that fruit that you like. You cannot explain, you can't articulate all of the flavor elements that are there. You just know like, oh my God, like it just was magical. And that's it, right? That's the whole point.
That's it.
I'm sold.
Such a cool way to
I'm in.
For sure.
I mean, honestly, in a way that, nobody has been able to express, honestly, that we've had talking about. We've had a couple of winemakers on, and I think the way you put it is really beautiful and really easy to relate to and understand. And it's so simple and so true. It's a beautiful way to think about it.
All right, so we are super excited to get into the wine that you shared with us. Just as like a shout out, Brian and the folks Continuum were so nice. They were going to send us the wine for tonight. I'm trying to keep it a mystery just for a minute longer, but they ended up sending us all 3 of the wines that they make, and so we're super excited to try those over the next few weeks. You all are very generous and so kind of you, and it's so cool because this is such an important year. I know this is important because this is your Uncle Tim's 50th harvest, going all the way back into the 70s with your grandpa, and now in Continuum. And so the wine we have tonight is his 50th harvest, which is so cool. So before we get into it, I just want to give you the opportunity to talk just a little bit about that. And then also just think about like moving forward. Just 50 years down, there's now so much of the next generation involved in Continuum Estate. Like, what does that look like? How cool has it been working with your uncle and celebrating this huge milestone? And what's next for you all?
It's a really exciting vintage for us. The 2023 vintage, it's got a lot of layers to it. It's, my uncle's first harvest overseeing winemaking fully at Robert Mondavi Winery was 1974, which was a pretty legendary vintage in its own right. And, I think wine's such a weird thing because, you get one shot a year at making wine. You get one harvest. Grapevines put out just one harvest a year. And, basically you do your job once every single year. And there's so few professions in the world where you do your job once a year. So you could be in a good career is like 20, 30 years. And imagine doing your job 20 times. That's it. Like you're just figuring it out, right? So you could have a long career and you've only done your job 20, 30 times. And Tim's, this year is with the 23 vintage is celebrating his 50th harvest. So he's worked on obviously a lot of wines over the years, but because the reps, as it were, are so few and far between for this magical profession of winemaking, it's something really special to have a career that long and that storied, and having worked on so many projects, because it really is a rare thing to get that many bites of the apple in an industry like wine growing or winemaking. So that's something that I think is really amazing, is really unique about Continuum, about my uncle Tim Mondavi. But he's worked on projects all around the world. He made the first vintage of Opus One when we started that partnership with the Rothschild family.
Wow!
When Baron Philippe Rothschild approached my grandfather Robert to youthen up this slow moving creature that was Chateau Mouton Rothschild. There was no Opus One winery for the first harvest of Opus One. So guess where those first few vintages were made? They were overseen by Tim and made in his cellar.
That's wild.
So he's really had this incredible, he worked on projects, in Italy with the Frescobaldi family, with Eduardo Chadwick in Chile. Like he's got this incredible history that I think with the 23 vintage, it really shows, it's kind of this accumulation of experience that's really unrivaled. And it shows in the finesse, in the intricacy and nuance of these wines. And I think one thing that's really cool with the 23 vintage is, just like the 1974 vintage, it was in, a tricky period for the wine industry. It was a colder harvest that, was, I think at that time, was maybe not looked at super favorably. But, my uncle in 1974 knew that the wine from that vintage was going to be absolutely spectacular. And, this year, the 2023 harvest in Napa, everyone is bugging out about it because it was this kind of throwback vintage. It was a much cooler, longer growing season than we're used to these days. It was kind of like the climate was back when my mom was a kid growing up in Napa. So in a lot of ways, there's a ton of symmetry between the 1974 harvest in Napa and the 2023 harvest in Napa. So it's kind of this magical culmination where, we have Tim's 50th harvest, this kind of manifestation of, I think, a really unique body of experience in the industry of, I'll never call it mastery, because Tim was always looking to improve, always looking to get better every year. But, coming together with a really exquisite, really beautiful, delicate, awesome vintage.
All right. So, amazing. Really excited to try your wine tonight. We've talked a lot. Now it's time to get into, the product of all of that work and all of,
The whole point.
The whole point. And
Exactly.
when you're talking about Tim, there's just so much reverence and appreciation in your voice. Like just listening to you talk about him, there's just so much clear respect. So I want to make sure we get into that. We're excited to try Centium in a week or so, which I know is your cousin's wine, and then also get to try Continuum. Thank you so much. But tonight we're going to drink Novicium. So could you tell our listeners a little bit more about that wine?
Yeah, Novicium's a really awesome project that it's a little bit of a sleeper that I think I'm really excited to start getting out a little bit more. We've actually made Novicium from the property since 2010, but we've only sold it at the winery. So if you haven't visited us, you probably don't know about it. But this last year, we're just starting to trickle it out in the market a little bit. So it's a really cool limited wine. Just like Continuum, it's all fully estate-based, so it's from this Continuum Estate property. We don't purchase any fruit for Continuum or Novicium. We grow it all ourselves with our own in-house team from, this property that I think right now we've got a little over 50 acres planted to vine. The biggest we'll ever be able to get is 70 acres. So it's very much, a confined estate-based wine. But Novicium's a really cool project because it is a little bit of a throwback, especially, in honor of my uncle's 50th harvest. It's a little bit of a throwback in style, that traditional, that more old school Napa Cabernet blend. So it's primarily a focus on Cabernet Sauvignon from this property. It's got a little bit of Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and Merlot. Those are the 4 varietals we grow on the property, but very much Cabernet focused at 91%. So it's a little bit more embracing of that classic Cabernet structure, a little bit more revealing of that rugged mountainside growing condition that we have up here. So I think it's a really awesome, fun, beautiful wine that shows, I think, a really distinct personality of Cabernet when it's grown on a mountainside versus the valley floor. So it's, kind of old school in idea, but definitely new school, more pushing the boundaries of what we're going for up here at Continuum.
Amazing. And so we're gonna do our favorite thing on the show right now, which is we're gonna try and assess and drink the wine, and in front of you, and you can let us know if we are way off. But we've been pretty good so far, I think. A lot of the things that we've gotten off our wines. So this bottle runs around $200, and so full transparency, we'll name this is a higher end bottle, but we've also said in the past, because we do this about every 6 months to a year. Our goal is to be honest about every wine that we try. And we know there are really good bottles of wine at every price point. And as much as we want to continue to show those, wines that are in my personal budget, there are going to be times where I am going to go out and I'm going to have a nice dinner. I'm going to celebrate an anniversary. I'm going to do something special, and I'm going to spend more money on a bottle of wine. And I want to make sure that I know that I am getting a bottle of wine that is worth that price point. And so any
just
chance
treating
that
yourself. You can
right.
treat yourself.
Yeah,
but I have also
need a special occasion.
been dumb at a restaurant and thought if I spent more money, I was going to get a nice bottle of wine. And because I didn't have the knowledge, I just spent more money. So
that does happen to you. Sure.
Yeah. So I am always excited to have the opportunity to try something that is just in a different place. Value point wise. Sure. And as we keep going, we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to, build out our repertoire, up and down the scale. So once again, super grateful and very excited. Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
Let's do
Cheers.
it.
That's lovely.
Wonderful. Colin, why don't you give us a start? What are you getting on the nose?
Man. What am I getting?
Fantastic.
How much time do you have? Because the complexity here is just outrageous. There is so much going on in this wine. And it's just super expressive. You can hold the glass a mile away from your face and you're still smelling like blackberry and black plum, a little bit of dark cherry as far as the fruit is concerned. But then there's you get the oak in there too. You get some of that vanilla, but there's also this really nice herbal quality. And, I wonder if that was kind of what Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were talking about kind of more of an old school style instead of that more plush, round, kind of in your face. This kind of has a nice herbal edge to it that you don't, or at least I haven't found you don't always find in Napa.
So the whole reason why my family got into wine, going back to my great grandfather, is we're Italians. We want wine on the dinner table. We want it to be, a beautiful, delicious drinking experience, but we want it to pair really well with food. So we've always really loved wine that's a little bit more elegant, a little bit more finessed, something that is expressive and deep and complex, but it's not brash. So that's always been the style that my Uncle Tim has preferred to drink and to work with. So we do try to be a little bit, maybe have 1 foot more into the old world and 1 foot, very firmly in Napa. But more elegance, more nuance, more delicacy is always what we're going for. But, one thing that's really special about this mountainside property is we're surrounded by all this beautiful native vegetation. And we really benefit from that healthy ecosystem. We're completely organically farmed. We're regenerative in our farming. That's something that Tim's been championing in the industry since the 70s, like way before it was the cool buzzword. And one really unique advantage to this property is, we call it Sage Mountain Vineyard. That's the name we've given the vineyard. There's wild sage. There's California bay laurel. It's literally a native bay leaf that I cook with at home all the time.
That's awesome.
That grows all around the property, and you can smell it in the mornings. It's really beautiful, the savory cooking herb aroma that settles on the skins of the grapes, makes it into the tank. And it's very much like a hallmark of all of our wines from the property.
Love that.
Incredible.
That's just the thing that's so interesting about it. And you called out so many great things there, Colin, but the fact that it's all there in the glass on the nose is what's kind of blowing my mind. Because even as you're saying that, I mean, it's just that you mentioned you can hold it 15 feet away and you get all these things. I wouldn't recommend it, because the closer you get, the more it's just like, whoa. And then there's this and there's that. And it's just expressive is a perfect way to say it. And just the earth. And I don't just mean, the soil, but just everything that's going on around this. It comes through in the glass in a way that I think is really cool.
Our goal is to shorten the distance as much, like a wine should transport you to where it's grown. So our whole mission in winemaking, and this is, why Tim kind of refers to it as wine growing, is our goal once we harvest the fruit is to stay the hell out of the way. It's to do as little as possible to shorten that distance between, wherever you might be enjoying the wine, whatever might be going on in your life, and that magical place where, the wine was grown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I'll kind of like half transition us into the tasting side. The first thing I noticed when I took a sip of this is the freshness. Like outside of everything else, like everything Colin and Joel said, it's so fresh and just like full. We've had so many Cab Sauves in the show now, and they've kind of run the gamut. It's so funny. It's like 91% Cab Sauv. Like that should be most of it. And the space between this wine and some of the other Cab Sauvs we had is like an infinite space of just that. There's such a difference when it is fresh and clean and real. And it's the first sip. And I handed, again, as I always do, I handed it to my wife, and she took a sip, and she
Is there there?
She popped
She's
out.
been sitting there.
Again, if no one noticed the floating
I noticed
bottle
it
at
earlier.
some point where I
saw it
handed the
earlier.
bottle of beer. I noticed it because I texted her and said, "You better come down here if you want a glass." But before we got on, I had her take a sip, and she is not someone who likes big bodied, super tannic resin. This has some tannins on it. You swish this around, and you get some real good tannins on this wine. And she was just like, "Wow." Like,
Well,
it's just so fresh.
Totally agree. And is it, you were talking about the land and not it being this plush, easy place for the grape, and the grape really has to struggle. And I think what you're talking about, and Brian, this may be totally wrong, and tell me I'm a dummy, but that's what I think is making that happen here. And I think it's the acidity, and I think it's that poking through and really making it such a fresh and inviting sip.
It seems like a really pure representation of like what the grape, like if I took the grape off the vine and just started roaming around your vineyard and eating your grapes after I get thrown off, like I would reflect upon like, wow, like that really translated really well into the bottle.
I mean,
How crazy are we?
We got this property in 2008 and 2009. We were able to rejoin a family plot, and we've been learning. We've been doing this for a long time, but it takes a lot of time to listen to. First of all, you have to listen to the land. You have to be on the property. You have to walk the vines. Listen to what the vines are telling you. Listen to what is going on in the vineyard. And we've gotten better and better and better every single year that we've been on this property at farming it, and understanding what the vines need and balancing our farming to what the vines need to allow that freshness to come through. Because you're right, a mountain condition is a really rugged, rough growing condition. And there's a lot of reputation for, especially Napa Mountain Cabs, to be enormous. And, there can be these really fresh, really aggressive tannins that can be impressive, that can taste expensive, but can maybe be a little uncomfortable. And so it takes a really skilled hand and a really humble approach to how you do things to get this delicacy and freshness from a hillside growing environment. And the other thing I'll note on the freshness front is another hallmark of our property is I mentioned that we have, this is a volcanic mountain range that we're on. It's a really rare soil type in Napa. And that volcanic minerality, that volcanic freshness is a real thing. And it's something that is, I think, maybe unexpected from Napa to have that. For me, when I think of volcanic minerality, I go to Etna Rosso or, something like a Sicilian wine. I'm not typically like, oh yeah, Napa's got that. And that's something that we love and we want to, showcase.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the word that keeps popping into my mind tasting this is precise. The precision on this wine shows up in a couple different ways for me. The fruit profile, I could paint you a picture of not only each of the fruit flavors, but how ripe they are in my mind, or at least mentally I'm painting that picture. It's very rare, at least from what I've experienced, to see each flavor note be so precise. It just tastes like the most ripe blackberry, the most perfectly ripe plum. Even with some of the the secondary notes and the oak, it just it paints such a beautiful image in my mind, which I think is a really cool experience because I don't always get that with wine. This is really hitting for me more than one sense, which I think is really cool because sometimes wine can just be wine, but this is an experience, right? This isn't just drinking a wine. There's so much in it. And then I think the precision also shows up in the structure. And we've talked about a little bit of the freshness, but everything is just so beautifully well balanced. I mean, it all seems like it makes sense. And I think this wine is 14.9, 15%, 14.9% ABV. Not in a million years could I give you any indication that this was 14.9%. The alcohol is so well integrated. The structure is so perfectly balanced. It's just through and through, precise on all levels. And it's an absolute experience.
Wow. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I mean, that's wine for us. That's exactly what we're going for. I describe really what we try to deliver is an experience. It's that precision and depth and complexity isn't something that you can make or engineer or add in. That to me is the most important thing is you cannot go in a lab and mix this with that and a sprinkle of this and a pipette and engineer complexity and a depth that only nature can deliver. This is something that is distinctly from the land, from the earth.
Yep, totally. And just back to the flavors real quick, because I want to touch on that. But I mean, all those dark fruits I think we mentioned on the nose, the plum, the dark cherry, the blackberry, but then the secondary flavors are also so exciting. You get that vanilla, a little bit of that baking spices from that oak influence, but there's also a little bit of tobacco leaf in there, I think, as well. And then there's this really cool, and the thing that's popping into my mind is graphite, graphite-y minerality that kind of runs through the entire sip. That's really, really enjoyable. And it kind of it really expresses itself for me on the finish the most, but when you look for it for the rest of the sip, it's in there, but it really kind of just brings everything else together in a really cool way that, again, paints a really incredible picture.
I want to name for the listener, I think that actually really brings together what Brian was saying with the ingredient points. It's just you can't mass produce that level of complexity, right? You can have bulk wine that is going to taste exactly the same every year, regardless of vintage, because you have figured out the ingredient structure to make that wine, but it's not going to have those through lines of secondary and tertiary flavors. And, like, it's just not going to be there. You can't do that. And so, like, this really is the thing that separates what I guess could be an okay tasting mass-produced wine versus really good wine, is just beyond that, there's oak and there's plum. Like, it's all these other levels of experience that you cannot get without the thought and the earth and just the level of ingenuity and creativity that especially smaller family run vineyards and estates are doing.
Totally.
Thanks, Steve.
Completely agree.
Yes. True.
Love.
All right. So we're getting to the end of our show, which is really sad because we are having a great time. We were really learning a lot and enjoying the heck out of this wine. And, with that being said, it's time for our review. And on the show, we do things very differently than every other review out there because we do not believe in numbers. We believe that wine is about who you're drinking with and it's about the vibes. So on the show, a must share is an exceptionally good bottle of wine that has something just a little bit extra going on with it. A solid pour is also a really good bottle of wine. It might just not have that extra little thing. A casual sipper is a fine wine that you're sipping around the house. And anything else, though, that is overpriced or low quality or generally undrinkable, we're just going to call it waste of your wine. And of course, we all have our wine fridges, which every year we get 3 spots in our wine fridge. We only get 3 spots, and these are our most favorite wines of the year. And if we want to put a new wine in, we have to take a wine out. Of course, if it was in there at all, it's a great wine. But it's just the rules of the game to keep things spicy. So, that being said, I am hosting.
What are we if not spicy?
We just try to keep our spice level up. I am host, so I get to go last. And Colin, you get to go first.
Cool. Yeah, wine fridge next.
I was going to say,
want to
do we
remind
just
you that
all
we have
do it
2
on 3?
more.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, okay. All right.
No, I've got more than that. Than that. But, I mean, listen, there are very few wines that I've had that take me on the journey that this wine has, right? Like I said before, it kind of paints a picture in your mind that really, like, this is kind of like, I don't know, I'm having a hard time describing it, but like this, it's just so good and such a unique experience, I think. And, we talk a lot about value, and even at $200, like for a special occasion bottle, yeah, like no problem. 100% all day long would I pay $200 for this. So yeah, it's just perfectly balanced structurally. It's so expressive and complex. I mean, this is definitely one if you want to seek out wine at the high end, and honestly, like not even like break the bank. You can pay thousands of dollars for a bottle of wine. You don't need to do that.
There are real expensive bottles of wine out there.
Right, exactly. You can just try this. And I think you would get a lot of the same experiences. So, incredible bottle of wine. And Brian, thank you so much for sharing it because this has really been amazing. So, wine fridge, 100%. Not even a doubt in my mind. I do have 3 in there, so I'll take out the Pierre and Antonin orange wine, first orange wine in a wine fridge on the show.
Wow.
It is served.
You still had a natural orange wine in your fridge, which was never to be expected at any point. So the fact that it made it, 7 months is a huge tip of the hat.
Amazing wine. Amazing wine. So hats off to them. But I think this one's going to take its place.
Joel?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've had some really, really good wines on this show, especially in the last year. We've really been making things happen. But I've never, this is going to sound so lame, but it's the only way I can say it. I've never been transported in the way that I was drinking this. And it's really true. Everything that we talked about, just, Brian, when you were walking us through the land, the estate itself, what these grapes are growing in, it is reflected in the experience and in the best ways. It's like it captures all of the best things about that. And really, really, it comes through so nicely on the sip. What I love about it, too, is as I've been enjoying this over the last 30 minutes, it has changed a little bit, and every single time it's just the layers of complexity, the layers remain, but every kind of level is morphing into its own, kind of new thing as we go, and everyone just as enjoyable as the last. So it's one of just the coolest wines that I think we've had on the show, period. So yeah, wine fridge for me as well. And I think I too have a full wine fridge. I think today I'm going to have to pull out the Ghost Block Sauvignon Blanc that's been in there for a little bit. Loved and goes on the pedestal of honor for sure, but that's going to come on out so I can put this Novicium right in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could honestly just like copy and paste everything Joel said all the way up to my wine fridge. Because I also have Ghost Block Sauvignon Blanc in there that I'm going to be taking out. Only because, man, I am such a sucker for like tannic red wines, and this is just pushing all my buttons. It is so good. And I think, once again, I would just say it gets to a point, I think, when we talk about wine value and what's going on in the wine community and why the next generation of drinkers aren't getting on board with wine. Because, trends happen all the time, right? Everyone was in the beer at one point. Everyone's in the cocktails at one point. Like, you would think wine would have its moment. And I think wine has an intimidation factor and a price entry factor that is really scary for people. And when I think about this wine, and then I think about what the quality points would be moving up from here, spending $500, $1,000, $1,200 in a bottle of wine. Maybe I'm naive, but I think at a certain point, there's diminishing returns. And I think this is such a fantastic example of spending a little more money to have something really special without spending money just to show off or to hit some brand or to, prove a point. I think you're getting what you pay for here, going all the way through the history of what Brian talked about and just the level of detail and thought that goes into this bottle, and getting just a really, really excellent, exemplary wine. And that can't be understated. And so I think if you're looking for an opportunity to try something that's on that next level, that's on that next tier, this is exactly what people should be looking for. And then anything significantly beyond this, like, when we start getting into that 700, 800, 900 range, like, I really question, like, are we getting a 3 times better, 4 times, 5 times better wine, or am I paying for a brand at that point? So I'm like super appreciative of what we have in front of us, because it is so good, and I think is very accessible in its own way.
Yeah, and just a quick note, like, I would love to taste this wine, this vintage, in, like, I don't know, 10 years. I think this is wine you could store, lay down, and then try in 10 years, and it would just deepen all of these complex flavors and add an entire new level of complexity. So, I think if you're looking for a nice bottle of wine to collect and store, I think this would also be a very good option for that.
So you guys actually kind of talked about this on a recent episode, but all of our wines, all the wines we make, we hope will age for, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And that's always what we're going for. We really believe that a great wine should be great at every stage of its life. We put a lot of work in to make sure that our wines are beautiful right now, and that elegance just keeps, carrying on, and the kind of flower bud of complexity and flavors opens up gradually as the wine ages. But yeah, like you guys talked about in a past episode, I get anxiety. I was always that kid who was too scared to eat my Halloween candy because I didn't want to run out. Don't buy one bottle of something. Buy a couple. Buy 3. Buy 6. Sure. Go full boomer. Buy a case. Buy 2 cases.
Full boomer.
But open a bottle now. See how it is. Open a bottle in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. Mm-hmm. If something's really great to you, buy a few and check in on it, over time. And that's, we haven't even talked about the whole element of aging in wine. Mm. Like, there's a whole nother dimension of magic, of natural God-given magic that goes on in wine. It's a living creature. It changes in the glass, like you guys said. Like it's always evolving, even just right here in front of us right now. But in the bottle too, with time.
Brian, before you let go, first of all, again, thank you so much. But we always end with a quick game. And man, we have chatted so much. But I have to ask you, so we have a game called Pick Your Poison, if that's okay with you. And this is a kind of one or the other. You got to choose which one. And I was inspired by this episode for this one. So here's your scenario, Brian. Pick your poison.
Here we go.
Would you rather, Brian, have?
I thought we were doing pick your poison. Now we're doing
what the hell, man?
It's the same thing. Sorry.
Damn.
Pick your
He's
poison.
right. He's right.
If it wasn't him, one of you would have yelled at me.
It's the same game.
Shut up. They didn't know yet. Pick your poison. Take over a incredibly well-known, iconic, world-renowned brand of a wine, but be locked in to very specific criteria of what that wine needs to be, and kind of be stuck with that, but have all the brand, recognition that you could possibly want. Or start from scratch, knowing that you're not going to have the same brand recognition, but have all the opportunity and creativity to, make it your own and do something cool.
I mean, we've gotten to kind of live that.
I was going to say, that's exactly the life he's living.
I know, that was the joke.
Choice. How is this a choice?
The joke.
Hey, Neil, would you rather go to the moon or be an accountant?
Shut up. Come on. That was going to be a cute
Neil
ending.
Armstrong
You guys
joke.
are
You guys, okay,
blowing
sorry.
it.
There's money in accounting.
That's true.
For us, like, it's been really liberating to be able to, each time that we've had to reinvent ourselves, we've been able to, like I said, to level up, to aim higher. And I think if you have the opportunity to build something from the ground up, to, choose your own adventure, to, wine is, it's nature, there's science, but it's art. There's a whole unexplainable level and a whole nother dimension to wine that can only, I think, be described as art. There's so many choices. There's so much personal connection and personal fingerprints that you put on the land and the land puts on you, and that ends up in the bottle. And that's the whole thing. It's terroir is not just the dirt and the sun. It's also, the fingerprint of the wine grower, of the family behind it. Everything in nature works together and moves the ball forward. So wine is about personal expression. It's, taste, flavor is totally a personal thing. So to me, you can't separate the personal journey and expression in making wine, in farming wine, in drinking wine.
See?
Beautiful.
See, it was a good question.
That's
a good question. Gave Brian excellent way to land the play at the end. Awesome. Before we let you go, Brian, is there anything you'd like the listener to know? Would you like them to, a website or wherever you'd like them to visit?
Yeah, well, absolutely come visit us. We're in Napa Valley.
We will.
We call it Oakville with altitude.
Nice.
So we're in the mountains overlooking Oakville, so right in the middle of the valley on the Eastern Mountain Range. We just finished a really gorgeous renovation of our estate house, of our hospitality area. So please hit us up, come visit. It's a gorgeous setting. All the elements that's in the wine you can see and smell and taste when you're there. And it just really kind of closes the circle on what these wines are all about. So please do come visit us. Visit our website, continuumestate.com. You can get the whole family story, all the info about the wines we make. But yeah, please just share our wines with friends and family and loved ones. Like, that's what it's all about. It's about popping corks, sharing a bottle, coming together, and making memories.
Amazing.
Love that.
And Colin, if people want to share some more time with us, where would they go?
Instagram, Stop Wasting Your Wine, or you could email us, cheers, Stop Wasting Your Wine. That's all you need to know.
Fantastic. That's all you need to know. All right, listener, we'll see you next week.
And remember, Stop wasting your wine.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
That was nice. Good job. Fantastic.
Perfect.